Attention, attention. His Eminence, the Imperious Leader.
Battlestar Galactica wasn't just reaching ludicrous speed. It was a production spinning completely out of control. Audiences saw epic space battles and heroic pilots fighting for humanity's survival. But behind those gleaming vipers, the production was imploding in spectacular fashion. A legendary filmmaker tried to destroy the show before it could air. Basketball players invaded Hollywood for the strangest reason imaginable. One chimpanzee broke television forever with a single bite. A secret affair nearly exposed everything the studio was desperately hiding.
How long before our fighters can return to defend us?
I'm afraid the Pegasus will reach us first.
The most expensive gamble in TV history almost bankrupted everyone involved. These are 15 weird facts about Battlestar Galactica's chaotic creation. But first, let's talk about the Jedi Master who wanted this show dead.
Number 1. This show almost never made it to air thanks to a Jedi Master.
Launch fighters.
In 1978, George Lucas wasn't just watching Battlestar Galactica, he was actively trying to destroy it. The show was so blatantly similar to Star Wars that Lucas and 20th Century Fox filed a massive copyright infringement lawsuit against the producers. The similarities were undeniable. Space battles, heroic pilots, and even similar ship designs. What made it worse? The show premiered just 1 year after Star Wars became a cultural phenomenon. The legal battle dragged on for 5 years, with depositions, court hearings, and mounting legal fees threatening to bankrupt the production company. The case was finally settled out of court in 1983, but not before it had poisoned relationships between studios and created a chilling effect on space-themed productions. The irony? Both Lucas and Battlestar creator Glen A. Larson were borrowing from the same source as classic westerns and World War II dogfight movies. Number 2. The most expensive television disaster in history.
Follow 2 targets on my scanner just above the old moon Simtar.
At $15 million for just the pilot episode, Battlestar Galactica became the most expensive television series ever produced at the time. To put that in perspective, that's roughly $65 million in today's money for a single television episode. The massive budget came from the elaborate space battle sequences, complex model work, and the need to create an entire universe from scratch. ABC executives were sweating bullets, knowing they needed massive ratings to justify the cost. The pressure was so intense that they decided to release the pilot as a theatrical movie overseas to recoup some costs. When the show finally aired, it needed to capture at least 35% of the viewing audience to break even. The gamble initially paid off. The premiere drew 65 million viewers, making it one of the highest-rated television movies ever. But sustaining those numbers proved impossible, and the show's astronomical costs eventually led to its downfall after just 1 season. Number 3. A creator's secret religious mission.
Can we turn our backs on the inspiration?
Glen A. Larson, the show's creator, was a devout Mormon who secretly embedded his religious beliefs throughout the series. The Quorum of 12 governing body was lifted directly from Mormon church structure. The planet Kobol, humanity's supposed origin world, was an anagram of Kolob, a star or planet mentioned in Mormon scripture as being near God's throne. The show's concept of eternal families, sealed together beyond death, reflected Mormon doctrine about celestial marriage. Even the idea of humanity's journey to find Earth paralleled the Mormon pioneer journey to Utah. Larson never publicly discussed these influences, but Mormon viewers immediately recognized the references. The religious subtext became so apparent that some Christian groups boycotted the show, claiming it was promoting false doctrine. Larson's other productions, including Knight Rider and Magnum P.I., also contain subtle Mormon references, making him one of Hollywood's most successful religious propagandists, whether intentional or not. Number 4. The lawsuit that changed science fiction forever.
Let the attack begin.
The Star Wars lawsuit didn't just threaten Battlestar Galactica, it fundamentally changed how science fiction was produced in Hollywood. Before the lawsuit, studios freely borrowed concepts, designs, and even entire plot structures from successful films. The legal battle established new precedents about what constituted copyright infringement in science fiction. Suddenly, production companies had to hire armies of lawyers to vet every spaceship design, every costume, every sound effect. The chilling effect was immediate. Several planned space operas were cancelled, and others were dramatically altered to avoid legal challenges. The settlement terms were kept confidential, but industry insiders report that Universal paid a substantial sum to Lucas while agreeing to strict limitations on future space-themed productions. The lawsuit also sparked a bitter feud between Lucas and Universal that lasted for decades, affecting everything from theme park attractions to merchandise deals. Some argue that this single lawsuit delayed the science fiction television renaissance by at least a decade. Number 5. The studio's desperate gamble facing the astronomical costs and legal pressures, ABC made a desperate decision that changed television history. They simultaneously developed Battlestar Galactica as both a television series and a theatrical film, hoping to recoup costs through international box office sales. The strategy was unprecedented. No major network had ever hedged their bets this way. The pilot episode was edited into a feature film and released in theaters across Europe, Australia, and Japan months before the television series aired in America. The theatrical version performed surprisingly well, earning $4 million overseas and proving there was international appetite for space opera. This success gave ABC the confidence to greenlight the full series, but it also created a strange situation where international audiences saw the movie first, then had to wait months for the television version. The strategy worked so well that it became the blueprint for other expensive productions, leading to the modern era of limited series and event television that dominates today's landscape. Number 6. Basketball players invaded Hollywood.
We are tracking him.
Order our patrol to return.
The Cylon costumes created an unexpected casting problem that led to one of television's strangest recruitment drives. The robotic villain suits were so tall and bulky that they required actors over 6 feet tall to wear them convincingly. Traditional Hollywood extras and stunt performers were too short, leaving the costume department scrambling for solutions. Enter the Los Angeles Lakers and other professional basketball teams who had just finished their season. Desperate producers started hanging around sports bars and basketball courts, literally recruiting unemployed athletes to play robotic villains. The basketball players loved the steady paycheck and the novelty of being in a hit television show, even if no one could see their faces. However, their athletic training created problems they moved too fluidly and naturally for robots. The costume department had to add weights and restrictive padding to make them move more mechanically. Some players complained about claustrophobia and overheating, leading to several on-set medical incidents. The strangest part? Many of these athletes went on to successful second careers in Hollywood, with some becoming stunt coordinators and special effects supervisors. Number 7. The chimpanzee that broke television. The robotic dog Muffet 2 was supposed to be a simple animatronic prop, but budget constraints led to one of the most bizarre casting decisions in television history. The producers hired a chimpanzee named Evie and stuffed her into a metallic dog costume. The results were simultaneously hilarious and terrifying. Evie was intelligent and well-trained, but she was still a wild animal with unpredictable instincts. During filming, she would occasionally break character by scratching herself, making chimpanzee sounds, or trying to remove the costume. The child actors were initially delighted, but their parents became increasingly nervous as Evie grew more comfortable and assertive on set. The breaking point came when Evie grabbed a craft services sandwich and ate it while still in costume, completely destroying the illusion for a live studio audience. Her handler had to be present for every scene, hidden just out of camera range with treats and disciplinary tools. Number 8. John Colloc became a cult leader by accident.
According to my plan, except you have not captured one of their pilots as I ordered.
John Colloc, who played the villainous Bolter, discovered that his character had developed a fanatical following that bordered on religious devotion. Fans began showing up at his theater performances shouting, "Bolter lives!" and treating him like a spiritual leader rather than an actor. The phenomenon started small but grew increasingly intense throughout the 1980s. Colloc initially found it amusing, but the situation became uncomfortable when fans began asking him for life advice and spiritual guidance based on his character's philosophical speeches. Some devoted followers started dressing like Bolter and adopting his mannerisms in their daily lives. The actor tried to distance himself from the character, but his distinctive voice and commanding presence made him instantly recognizable. Science fiction conventions became particularly challenging, as fans would approach him, expecting him to remain in character. The situation reached a peak when a small group of fans formed what they called the Bolter Philosophy Society, which promoted the character's speeches as actual wisdom. Colloc eventually had to hire security at public appearances. The experience taught Hollywood about the power of charismatic villains and the dangers of creating characters that resonated too deeply with audiences. Number 9. The cast rebellion that changed everything.
I'll be ready, Lucifer. Oh, I get it.
Midway through production, the main cast staged an unprecedented rebellion that nearly shut down the entire series. The actors were exhausted from the demanding schedule, frustrated with constantly rewritten scripts, and angry about the unsafe working conditions during space battle sequences. The breaking point came when several actors suffered minor injuries from malfunctioning harnesses during a particularly complex action sequence. Led by Richard Hatch, Apollo, and Dirk Benedict, Starbuck, the cast collectively refused to work until safety protocols were improved and their concerns were addressed. The work stoppage lasted 3 days and cost the production over $2 million. Studio executives flew in from Los Angeles for emergency meetings, threatening to replace the entire cast. The standoff ended when producers agreed to hire additional safety coordinators, provide better insurance coverage, and give the actors more input on script changes. The rebellion marked the first time in television history that an entire main cast had successfully challenged studio authority. The incident set a precedent for actor safety that influenced industry standards for decades. However, the work stoppage also contributed to the show's eventual cancellation, as network executives became convinced that the production was too difficult to manage. Number 10. The secret romance that Scandal almost exposed. A behind-the-scenes romance between two married cast members nearly destroyed the show's wholesome image and created a tabloid-feeding frenzy. The affair was so carefully hidden that even crew members didn't know about it initially. The relationship began during the intense shooting schedule, when long hours and shared stress created intimate bonds between the actors. The situation became complicated when both actors' real-life spouses began visiting the set regularly, creating awkward tensions during filming. The romance was almost exposed when a paparazzi photographer caught the couple in a compromising position in a studio parking lot. The photograph was purchased by a major tabloid, but the studio's publicity department managed to suppress the story by threatening to blacklist the publication from future exclusives. The cover-up required paying substantial bribes and calling in favors from powerful media executives. The affair continued throughout the show's run, but the constant secrecy created noticeable tension during romantic scenes between other characters. Both actors eventually divorced their spouses after the show ended, but they never publicly acknowledged their relationship. The scandal remained hidden for over a decade until one of the actors finally discussed it in an autobiography. Number 11. The spin-off that destroyed everything. Galactica 1980 was supposed to be Battlestar Galactica's triumphant return, but instead it became one of television's most spectacular disasters. The spin-off was handicapped by a drastically reduced budget, forcing producers to set most of the action on contemporary Earth to avoid expensive space scenes. The show's premise that the colonial fleet had finally reached Earth, but had to remain hidden while secretly preparing humanity for the coming Cylon invasion, was promising in concept but terrible in execution. Only one original cast member, Lorne Greene, returned for the new series, and his character was killed off in the first episode. The show featured time travel, motorcycles, flying through space, and children with superpowers elements that felt completely disconnected from the original series' tone. The production was so cheap that they reused footage from the original series extensively, sometimes with jarring results. Critics savaged the show, calling it childish and an insult to the original. Ratings were disastrous, and the show was cancelled after just 10 episodes. The failure of Galactica 1980 tainted the entire franchise for years, making networks reluctant to attempt any further revivals. The show's failure also demonstrated that fan campaigns could bring shows back from the dead, but couldn't guarantee their quality or success. Number 12. The recycling scandal that nobody noticed.
The Warriors won't be able to refuel, reload, or land.
In one of the most brazen acts of creative recycling in television history, Glen A, Larson systematically reused props, costumes, and even entire effects shots from Battlestar Galactica in his subsequent production, Buck Rogers, in the 25th Century. The reuse was so extensive that sharp-eyed viewers could spot identical spaceships, laser guns, and computer panels appearing in both shows. The most obvious example was the Colonial Viper cockpit, which was redressed and used as Buck's starfighter. Even more audacious, several space battle sequences were lifted wholesale from Battlestar Galactica, with only the color timing changed to make them look different. The recycling was driven by budget constraints, but it also represented a creative philosophy that props and effects were interchangeable between science fiction productions. The practice was so common that it became an inside joke among crew members, who would place bets on which Battlestar prop would appear next in Buck Rogers. The most expensive recycled item was the massive Cylon-based star model, which was repainted and used as an alien space station. The recycling extended to sound effects, music cues, and even some dialogue. Modern fans have catalogued hundreds of recycled elements, creating detailed databases that read like evidence in a plagiarism case. Number 13. The bloopers that became legendary.
I'd like to show you.
The production of Battlestar Galactica was plagued by technical problems that created some of the most memorable bloopers in television history. The most famous involve visible wires holding up spaceship models during weightless space scenes. The wires were supposed to be painted black to match the starfield background, but lighting changes often made them clearly visible. In one particularly embarrassing moment, a model spaceship's wire snapped during filming, sending the ship tumbling into the camera lens. The production team had to reshoot the entire sequence, costing thousands of dollars and days of schedule delays. Another legendary blooper involved American technology labels, appearing on supposedly alien equipment. Eagle-eyed viewers spotted Made in USA stickers on computer terminals and Westinghouse logos on control panels. The most ridiculous mistake was a scene where a character's watch was clearly visible, despite the story being set in a distant galaxy. These bloopers became so notorious that they were featured in blooper reels and behind-the-scenes documentaries. Some fans argued that the mistakes actually added charm to the show, proving that even low-budget productions could create compelling science fiction. The bloopers also sparked debates about continuity and realism in science fiction that continue today. Number 14. The Apollo 11 Easter egg that broke canon.
What is it?
The final episode of Battlestar Galactica contained a hidden reference that fundamentally changed how fans understood the show's timeline. In a scene that lasted only a few seconds, the Colonial Fleet's sensors detected radio transmissions from Earth's Apollo 11 moon landing. The reference was so subtle that most viewers missed it entirely, but it suggested that the show was set much closer to our present day than anyone had realized. The implications were staggering. If the Colonials were receiving 1969 transmissions, then the show was taking place in the relatively near future rather than the distant past or alternative timeline that most fans assumed. The Easter egg was Glen A, Larson's private joke, but it created massive continuity problems that would plague the franchise for decades. Fans spent years trying to reconcile the Apollo reference with the show's mythology about ancient civilizations and lost Earth. The reference also suggested that the Colonials' technology was somehow contemporary with 20th century Earth, despite appearing more advanced. Later, productions in the franchise would struggle with these chronological contradictions, leading to elaborate explanations about time loops and parallel dimensions. The Apollo 11 reference became one of the most analyzed moments in science fiction television, spawning countless fan theories and debates. Number 15. The Starbuck Cliffhanger that haunted fans.
Then we picked up something that could have been transmitted 100 yards ago.
The original Battlestar Galactica series ended with one of television's most infamous unresolved cliffhangers. Starbuck's fate remained completely unknown. In the final episode, the popular character was shown crash landing on a mysterious planet with no rescue in sight. The abrupt ending was caused by the show's unexpected cancellation, leaving writers no time to resolve the storyline. For fans, Starbuck's disappearance became an obsession that lasted for decades. The cliffhanger was particularly cruel because Starbuck was the show's most popular character, and his fate directly affected the other characters' emotional arcs. Dirk Benedict, who played Starbuck, received thousands of fan letters asking about his character's survival. The actor himself was frustrated by the unresolved ending, as it prevented him from finding closure with the role. The mystery became so prominent that it overshadowed other aspects of the show's legacy. When the spin-off series Galactica 1980 was produced, resolving Starbuck's fate became a primary concern for fans and producers alike. The eventual resolution, which involved time travel and supernatural elements, satisfied some fans, but disappointed others, who had imagined their own endings. The Starbuck cliffhanger became a cautionary tale about the importance of planning series finales, influencing how subsequent shows approach their conclusions. It started as a desperate Star Wars ripoff with basketball players in robot suits and a chimpanzee playing a dog. But somehow, that chaotic mess became a science fiction legend that's still inspiring new stories today. The original Battlestar Galactica proved that even the most troubled productions can tap into something timeless about human survival and hope. If you're into bizarre Hollywood history and the weird ways that classic shows actually get made, hit subscribe. We're just getting started with the chaos behind your favorite series. It became a cautionary tale about the importance of planning series finales, influencing how subsequent shows approach their conclusions. It started as a desperate Star Wars ripoff with basketball players in robot suits and a chimpanzee playing a dog. But somehow, that chaotic mess became a science fiction legend that's still inspiring new stories today. The original Battlestar Galactica proved that even the most troubled productions can tap into something timeless about human survival and hope. If you're into bizarre Hollywood history and the weird ways that classic shows actually get made, hit subscribe. We're just getting started with the chaos behind your favorite series.